This is Renee Rabbitt of Rabbitt Design. You can check more on my website at rabbittdesign.net, and I'm saying that right now because that's about all you're going to hear about it for the rest of the day. The rest of the day, I'm going to give you new content. We're going to give you some tutorials. We're going to give you some objects to download and add to your Chief Architect library collection. We've got a 100 post cap, so we might even hit that cap. This is going to be pre-recorded the day before because we're going to start bright and early tomorrow morning. If you have any problem following any of these tutorials, some of them are really fast paced. You can always click on your screen and hold, and that will pause. So you can go forward a level, go back a level, see if you can follow some of these tutorials as we get through some really high level and cool tricks and tips for Chief Architect. So glad you're here with me. Follow along. It's going to be a fun day. Here's a tutorial about making a realistic standing seam roof. I've got a template plan here. I'm going to use my Q key and just dive right in. Q key gets me my roof tool. I'm going to draw this roof out, and then it's going to tell me to turn auto rebuild roofs off. That's fine. I'm going to select this edge. I'm actually going to do a concentric resize. I want to pull this edge a little bit away from this. The fascia as well as the ridge line. Just a couple inches is fine. And now I want to pull a 3D view. From there, I can hit my Alt key, W, and then horizontal, H, and that's going to tile these two views so we can take a look at what we've got going on here. And I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to modify this roof that I just created, and in my structure panel, under the roof layers section, in the surface radio button, I'm going to add 1 inch to my assembly here, making it an 1.125" assembly. Now, we're going to see this pop up in 3D. You can see here, we just popped up a section of roof, and you can kind of guess where we're going to go from here. Now, I want to select one of these edges, and I know this because my edit handle shows me, just based on the color that I have set here, that I've got this edge selected. So I'm going to double click this, open up, and get into my shadow boards, and I'm going to turn this section on and add a new shadow board. Let's make this an unfiltered search. I'm going to put in CA001001, if you will, and select that. I'm going to make a designation here that it's only maybe 1/4 inch tall. And then the offset, I'm going to take from that total surface assembly, which was 1.125 inches. You're going to see here in 3D, all of a sudden we've created a fin. Look at that. All I need to do is change the color of this fin to match the existing. Now, I want to get over on this other side, select this edge, and I can double click and make sure that this is turned on as well. And you can see here, we're creating a standing seam. Back in plan view, I'm going to click on that one edge, and then I'm going to set this to be something like 3/4 inch. Now, if we get into a different render mode, something like this PBR render mode, and maybe we'll even edit our backdrop settings, or add a backdrop, if you will. Let's just add a backdrop real quick. We're going to do our Garza backdrop, which is a backdrop I created by taking pictures in Costa Rica, so it's one of my favorite ones. There we go, and then we can increase that backdrop intensity. By default, I have mine set to 200. By default, yours might be set to 7,000. So there we go. We've got a little bit of a look of that standing seam look there, if you will. Last kind of step of this is that I'm going to get into my library again and I'm going to search standing seam. Now I'm going to have this available for your download, but I've got a standing seam ridge edge, and it's specifically built to kind of tuck over the top of this ridge that we just created, this standing seam roof item that we just created. I'm going to paint this aluminum color on that newly created standing seam detail. And then the last bit is I might center this up on this roof line. I can select it. Got to get a little tight. Maybe I'll just select it in this plan view here. And then I can do a multiple copy, and I'm going to set that multiple copy interval, something like 12 inches is fine. Now I'm going to copy it past what I need to here, and you're going to notice that I'm going to have to do some cleanup. So we're going to pause for a second, get back. And now that I've brought back all those miniature little roof planes, all my little seams, I can hit my Q key. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to hit my L key. I'm going to draw an inference line here. Just going to be a diagonal line here along that hip. And then I can hit my Q key. That turns it into a roof edit mode, right? And then shift select marquee this roof. And I can copy it and reflect about this object here. That's going to make a perfect little setup here for this corner. And look at that. Look how good that looks. A really quick and simple way of doing a standing seam roof in 3D. Instead of using your materials, you can actually do this in 3D in Chief Architect. And I love this software. Another tutorial for you. Thanks for watching. We got more to come. Here at Rabbitt Design, our biggest source of revenue is construction documents and schematic design. We're no stranger to this. Lifelong in the trades, a fourth generation general contractor turned designer, and I love what Chief Architect can do for construction documents as well as some schematic design. Right now we're previewing a co-design with the Lewis Builders of Carmel Valley. We're going through some initial schematic or conceptual design. And the one thing I've got to say is beyond conceptual design, beyond schematic design, design development, and production documents, construction documents, you name it, the thing that I get asked most about in my workflow is renderings. So let's take a little time and figure out how do we get a good looking rendering out of Chief Architect. And look at this. This is X13. This is their PBR ray trace ability. You can see here we're waltzing around this room, getting a nice live update as we go. Some good materials go a long way in Chief Architect. Let's take a look at some basic improvements to your Chief Architect rendering. I'm going to close these two files out. So let's start with a brand new plan. And we'll pull a camera. Now this is my plan template. This isn't an out-of-the-box template. So there's one material in here. This is this flooring material. You can, of course, download this at the Chief Talk Symbols and Content thread in the link here provided. But other than that, it's pretty similar to out of the box. Now, when we pull a PBR RTX, if you will, ray trace, PBR ray trace, that's what it's called, I swear. You need an RTX capable machine to be able to use the PBR RT that's in Chief Architect. And of course, plenty of documentation on Chief. Call them up, they'll help you out, tell you the machine specs that you need. Now we can see when I pull a 3D camera view here and turn it into that PBR RT, the exterior scene is overexposed. Now why is that? Well, there's a number of different reasons, and it's doing exactly as it should. And the one thing I like to do to kind of set this up to look, you know, more underexposed, if you well, not underexposed, but properly exposed, is that I like to get into adjust the sun settings. And this is a really simple thing that you can do. By default, when sun follow camera is checked, if that's in fact your default, the sun is going to be pointed towards your backdrop. So if I uncheck this and change the degree of the direction angle to something like, oh, let's say 230, what you're going to see here is all of a sudden we get some proper exposure on our exterior scene. In fact, I could even pump that exposure up. Now, instead of pumping the exposure up, I'd actually like to increase the daytime backdrop intensity. For an interior scene, when the sun isn't illuminating my backdrop, I like to set this anywhere in between 200 and 1000 on up. Depends on the backdrop that you use. So I'm going to set this to 400 or so, maybe even 600 or 800, and this is starting to look a little bit more appropriate. Now, one of the things that you'll notice is we have a bunch of noise in the scene, or what I like to call fireflies. Now, there's a way you can get rid of those fireflies if, in fact, you are presenting live to your client. And that would be back in that rendering technique options. What I want to do here is I want to increase the sample rate. Now, the sample rate, it's kind of hard to describe without just pointing you to an article where you might look this up. But what we're doing with samples is not only are we tracing the path of light within a rendering technique, but we're also sampling a particular material as it's applied to a mesh. And what we're sampling is what's happening to that material in terms of illumination, in terms of refraction, reflection, any number of different things. So the higher the sample rate, the greater the image quality. So when I want to go to print a market, media style presentation image, when I increase my resolution, I'm also going to increase my sample rate. I'll increase it anywhere from 2,000 on up to 10,000, depends on what I need. So if I pump this up to say 1,800 and then I uncheck cap live samples, what's going to happen is if I keep my camera still so that we're not reprocessing the rendering, it's going to continue where it left off, ironing out all those samples, and we're going to see that the noise or the fireflies slowly disappear. So it's a good method if you want to present live and you want to be able to show a very clean image. You only need to stop on a particular viewpoint. Don't touch your mouse, don't move or pan the camera around, and the image that you're producing will look pretty good. Now let's go ahead and modify some of these wall textures, and I want to get into a couple little things about these wall textures. Namely, I want to add some ambient occlusion, and I want to add that just so that you know what ambient occlusion even can do. When we're adding ambient occlusion, what this means is ambient light, this texture map is occluded from that ambient light, or being affected by ambient light, if you will. So I'm going to browse for a map, and I'm just going to pick any map within my own personal materials catalog. Within my walls here, I'll get into bump maps, and then I'll pick something like this drywall bump that's really heavy. Now we can see here in the preview, we kind of got splotchy. In fact, maybe we'll pick something that's even more effectitious. Let's go ahead and get into our solid section here, and I'm going to pull a gradient map. And you're going to see here, very quickly, we're essentially creating shadows when the mesh itself is not providing those shadows. So we're faking shadows in a sense. What this means is we can get some pretty dynamic images just by adding an ambient occlusion map, or AO map. So let me go back out, and I'm going to add the ambient occlusion map that I would actually like to add to the scene, which is that I want to add a little bit of shadow at the top of this wall. So, or maybe I'll add a little shadow into just the bumps of this wall. So in the bump maps, I'm going to choose this Old World 2. It's going to be a very, very subtle effect. And then the next thing is I'm going to add a bump map. Now, most of you know what a bump map is. You take a black and white image, or a grayscale image, if you will, and the black channel is going to be either a height of a low height or a high height, and the white channel is the inverse of that. So if I choose this heavy bump map right here, what we're going to see when we press OK is as I drop in a light next to this wall, let's just see exactly what this is doing. Oops. We're going to drop in a light right overhead. We're going to see a heavy texture on the wall. So not only do we have our ambient occlusion in play, but we also have that heavy texture. Now the last thing I'd like to show you is a roughness map. Now the roughness map is very similar to the bump map and the ambient occlusion map. We've got a grayscale map where black is very shiny, high gloss, and white is going to be a matte finish. So that if we grab a texture like this, we're going to have a pretty matte finish on the whole. It's only going to highlight some little details here. Now, of course, if we want to kind of exaggerate the effect, why don't we pick a very dark map to put into our roughness map? Let me go get into some other materials. Maybe I'll jump into my metals materials and grab a really, really dark map, and let's see what this does to the wall. Look at that. Immediately, we've got a lot of gloss going on the wall. It's kind of a crazy looking texture. Now let's take this a step further. In fact, we're going to introduce a metal map, and maybe we'll create a custom wallpaper out of this assembly. I work with a woman named Melissa Nunes of MKB Design. She's got a particular wallpaper that she used on a project that we collaborated with. In fact, it was the project that we first collaborated on. Hi, Melissa. Shout out to you, of course. Let me get into my wallpaper section, and we've got, look at that, Melissa's wallpaper. So here's my diffuse map. And in fact, let me make sure that I was even in the diffuse source. There it is. There's my diffuse map. We've also got a bump map. If we want to add a bump map, in fact, this original texture didn't need a bump map, but it might be fun to add anyways. We can add an ambient occlusion map, and I think where I want the ambient occlusion to show up is not on the metal sections. It's going to show up in between the metal sections. Switch to general material, get into that metal map, and drop in this roughness map. Back here, you can see that the roughness map is inverted. There we go. Now we have a metal material. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Chief, you're amazing. What a fun software to work in. I've got a bunch more videos like this on my YouTube channel. If you want to learn more, if you want to just dive in, find out all the information that I've got for building out these systems, building out these materials, building out these renderings, of course, jump onto that YouTube channel. We've got a bunch of cool tips and tricks. Take a look at the 7-minute kitchen. Take a look at the various toolkits we give for creating, 3D text. If you follow me in my crazy Facebook group called the Rabbitt Design Feed, or maybe you follow me on YouTube, or maybe you're privy to the Symbols and Content thread on Chief Talk, or maybe you've just gone to my website. Any one of those places, you might have caught wind of a very special toolkit that I use that I'm sure you want to get your hands on. And guess what? Today, and maybe for only a week only, I'm not really sure how long I'm going to leave it up, I'm going to give you a link to my favorite toolkit, and that's my 1-minute shower toolkit. Now we're going to preview this toolkit. You're going to get it for free today only, maybe a week long, who knows. But I want to preview this toolkit just so we can see what exactly this toolkit is comprised of in case you want to make one for yourself. You can see here I have a custom user-added toolbar. I have a bunch of different tools where I've created icons specifically for this toolkit, and I'll give you these icons as well as some instructions on how to get them into a toolbar like this one. Let's just preview what this toolkit does. First tool up, I'll place it, I'm going to explode it. It's an architectural block. It has a few items in here. The one big item in here that's really important is that it has a cabinet. And the cabinet is set to 0 inches and to not display. And the cabinet serves for a couple purposes. One, it's a nice little tool to line up for your curb, which I just drew in. Next, I've got a half wall. I can draw that half wall in as well. Then I have a shower room. The shower room will essentially create a mortar bed. It will call this room a shower room. And then also, it might designate some materials. Now, I'm not going to paint that yet. I also have a bench here. I'm not going to place this bench for this particular shower. I have a door. The door has hinges on it that are specific to a shower style. So I'm going to bring this 1/2 inch off the wall. And then I've got another door that's actually a panel. And I'm going to bring this 1/2 inch off the wall. And then we're going to preview what we've got going on here. So let's do a perspective floor overview and get in tight, and we're going to see what we've got. So far, we've got the makings of a shower. I'm going to use my backsplash tool now. I'm going to paint the side that does not have the half wall. And then I want to move this out 3 inches. And I can duplicate it about center of the room to get that backsplash on the other side. I want to paint it one more time into the back wall here. And then I'm going to place a shower niche that I have as well. Now the shower niche can be resized any way you'd like. It's kind of a dynamic shower niche. Last bit is I'm going to use this shower painter, paint this room out, and there we have it. If we turn on PBR, we're going to see we've got a very good looking shower, and it took almost no time at all. So if you've chimed in this far, I'm sure you're pretty excited about getting your hands on this. Just click on the link and you'll get a download package, a nice little zip, some instructions, and please enjoy. This is one of my favorite tools. I'm happy to give it away. I'm all about the abundance mindset. Shout out to Abby K. She knows what I'm talking about. And I'll tune in another, I don't know, 15 minutes or so. Has it been 15 minutes yet? I don't know. I'm feeling pretty generous. Let's go ahead and give away the bath toolkit. And this is like a 30 second maybe bath toolkit. And it's in that same toolbar that I've got here. We're going to just drop this in. Immediately it drops in some kind of Kohler bath, some shower valves that are placed off the wall, an exhaust fan. And we want to explode this block. Once we've exploded this block, we can switch to our 3D, do that backsplash tool again, that same trick. You can see here it paints around this valve. Now, there's a problem with it painting around the valve. You might want to paint it on this side first and then flip it about the center of the room. That's kind of an easy way to get about this. And then that backsplash can be painted on that back wall. Same thing, you can use that same shower niche tool that I have here. And then the last bit of this, we need to go back into plan view. And we're going to grab this next tool. And what we're going to do here is, this is drawing a wall. We need to kind of line this wall up. It's going to line up on basically the shelf of this tub, right? The deck, if you will. And from there, I'm going to drop this next item in. And I just want to, what this is a door. And all I'm going to do is center this on the room itself. Now let's look at our 3D again and see what exactly this is. What this is a door that's placed inside of a special wall, and the wall is meant to look like a frame of a shower door assembly. And what this is actually a door in Chief Architect. So if we turn on PBR, we're going to see here, this is actually a sliding door. Yes, you can shut the door. You can change the orientation of the door. Get in a little tighter here, see if we can see this. Maybe we'll switch to a vector view so you can really see what's going on. Look at that. That's a door. So if we select it, you can shut it, open it, flip the sides, easy enough, and it looks like a bath and shower door. Real simple, quick, nice assembly. There you go. Same thing. Click on the link, download, and enjoy. Okay, if you're joining me live, what I'm looking at here today is we're going to do something that was kind of a popular request, which is make a particular type of graphic overlay for plan views. Graphic overlay for plan views. And so what I did was I went to chiefarchitect.com and I picked up the, I believe it was Beachy, oh, where are we at here? In our user center, samples gallery. And then in the samples gallery, Beachy McMansion is what we downloaded. And so that's what we're looking at in Chief Architect right now. Now the only thing I did different from the default Beachy plan is that I changed all the wall types so that the fill matched the layer that it lived on. So if I go into my wall type, what I did here was I changed all the fill on all of these wall types so that it matched the layer so that I can control it by the layer. I wanted to have a black fill. And the purpose of this will come up a little bit later, but for now, this is what Beachy McMansion looks like when I've got it opened up in the kitchen and bath plan view. Next thing I want to do is I'm going to pull a orthographic floor overview. And we're going to set a few things up in 3D with this floor overview. One is I want to switch the rendering method to standard rendering method. I want to switch to shadows turned on, and then in rendering technique options, I want line drawing on top. I'll go ahead and change my extend amount down to 0, as well as my squiggle amplitude and my squiggle frequency. Just to back up a little bit, what we're going to do is create a graphic floor overview as a client presentation, if you will. Now I want to make sure in this rendering option that I have all lights turned on, so I'm going to go ahead and switch to the default light set, which will turn all of these lights on. Now I'm going to adjust some sun settings. I want to use a generic sun, and I'm going to change my tilt angle to something like -85 degrees. This is going to really illuminate the scene, so I want to bring this back down a little bit. So what I'll do is I'll change the sun color to something like a dark or medium gray. You can see here it's starting to look pretty sharp. Now just to ensure I have my camera set up perfectly, I want to edit my active camera, and I want to make sure that my camera angle is 90 degrees and that my tilt angle is negative 90 degrees. The last thing I want to do is I want to get into this 3D menu, into my camera view options, and turn on a cross-section slider. What I'm going to do is create a section cut so that we're just hiding the top of our jambs on all of our openings. So something like 78 inches. Again, this is the Beachy McMansion plan. What you may have noticed now is it looks as if all openings are in fact open. There's no head jamb anymore. From here, I can hit my Alt key, I can hit F for file, E for export, P for picture. I want to make sure I'm using the active window size, and typically I would scale this up. For the purpose of this video, I don't want you to have to wait for this to export, so we're going to leave this as a small scale. Save in a file location where you can find this image in just a little bit, and then we're going to switch over to plan view, and we're going to do a couple things in plan view as well. What I want to do is I want to create a new layer set. I'm going to go ahead and copy this set, and I'm going to select all. I'm going to select not to display anything, and then I want to pick and choose exactly what I want to display. Namely, I want to see my walls, and I can hit select all on this. There's one that I need to uncheck once I've hit select all and display. I want to uncheck that walls main layer only layer. Next, I want to show windows. I also want to make sure that my windows are black in color. Check that to display. And then doors. Now for the Beachy McMansion plan, since we're copying off the kitchen and bath plan view, I'm going to increase this line weight. I want to change this line weight to something like 65 or so. And this is what's left over by creating this layer set. Next step is I'm going to Alt F for file, I for import, P for picture, and I'm going to grab that and go ahead and turn on this layer. Let me slide this new imported picture over, and what I want to do is grab a known measurement from this plan. And really I want to get a measurement that kind of covers the expanse of the entire plan. So I'm going to get in tight, and I'm going to use a line, and I'll snap a line to the inside wall here, come all the way down, pop it to this bottom piece here, and I'm going to hit enter or tab and then Control C to copy this dimension. So long as polar is checked, this should give you the dimension that you traveled with that line. I can hit cancel, and it's going to delete that line. I don't need that line anymore. Now over in the image that I imported, I'll get in real tight, select, and then in my edit toolbar, which is typically at the bottom of your screen, I'm going to use my point-to-point resize. I'll click on one point inside that wall, come down, click on my second point, and I can paste that dimension in here. I want to make sure retain aspect ratio is checked. From there, I'm going to just slide on down to kind of the bottom of this image, and I'm going to use a point-to-point move. I'll click on the inside of this wall, slide over here, and click on my plan view inside of that wall. Now we've got a graphic underlay. You may or may not be able to see it, but I can still select doors, I can still select walls and rooms. In fact, I can draw text right over the top of this. You might want to change your fill style to something like a solid white fill style, but we can see here the text shows up right over the top. For something like this, we might want to increase this text style to something like an 1/8 inch text style to bump the size on this up. I'm going to delete this and then go to the last step. Last step for me would be that I want to select the exterior room, which means I need to just select outside of my exterior walls. And then in my edit toolbar, I'm going to make room polyline. That's all I'm going to do with that polyline right now. Next, I want to grab a polyline box, draw a box over the entirety of this project, select this box, and in my edit toolbar, I'm going to use the subtraction tool, and I'm going to come over here until I highlight that polyline that we made that was the exterior room. I'm subtracting this exterior room from this bigger polyline box. If I open this polyline box now, change my fill style to a solid, change the color to a white, and what we're going to end up with is a really nice presentation piece. You can obviously drop notes in on top, throw this to a layout view if you'd like. It definitely works with room labels. I see a comment in the comments right there. Thank you. Yes, it works with room labels. Let's go ahead and turn that on. You might have to add fill to your room layer text style. I think that's Tim Schrock. Thanks for chiming in, Tim. I promised this in our Facebook feed. I'm glad you guys are here taking a look at this. This is one of my most asked for tutorials. Hopefully Chief Architect will be able to download this, give this back to you so you can watch this at your leisure. Now I want to jump into a little bit more on some rendering, and we're only going to be live for another, I don't know, say 15 minutes or so. Hey Cindy, thanks for coming in. This is a project I'm collaborating with a company called Lewis Builders. We saw a little bit of this in the IG stories today, if you caught this. This is one of those projects where I really did almost nothing to create a pretty good looking scene like this. So let's get in and take a look at what exactly makes this scene pop. Why does it look so good without much effort? One of the items that we didn't really get to touch base on in our IG stories was the roughness map and just how important that is to a good looking material. You can see here, if we look out at this exterior door, how this roughness map plays off of the granite countertop. Let's go ahead and use our adjust materials and take a look at what this material is comprised of. Here's our roughness map right here. We're using a marble bump. If I just select this, I can of course then go copy it, and I'm on a Windows machine, so all I need to do is get to a Windows Explorer folder and paste that URL to be able to see what image that is. And this is the image we're using for that particular material. Now everything that's a dark gray is going to be glossy. Everything that's a white is going to be a matte finish. It's important to note, so that if we wanted to have more of a gloss material in our countertop material, let me get into my materials store here. We'll get into my bump and roughness maps. I'm going to pick something that has a lot more black in it, and we're going to see immediately what effect that has in the scene. You can see here now we've got a high gloss coming off of this countertop. Not a lot of light dispersion. It's pretty linear. Let's go ahead and change this out again, and we'll switch to the inverse, a very white map. You're going to see a lot of dispersion, barely any reflection coming off of this, almost no effect from the outdoor light. Now we'll switch back to that original bump map, and on top of that we might even add an AO map. An AO can possibly add some pitting in this material, so we could take this other map right here that has a little bit of a pitting and create some shadows where shadows did not exist before. Gets to be more and more of a complex scene. Same thing with our cedar material here. This was originally created to create kind of an indoor spa, if you will, indoor sauna. The scene actually has no lights turned on. Usually I prefer having daylighting unless I need to show the effect of a particular light. I actually like to turn all of my lights off. Now a little trick I wanted to show you. Let's go ahead and open up my library. And we're going to get into one of the manufacturer catalogs. Maybe we'll get into like a doll tile. What I want to do here is I want to pick one of these manufacturer items, and say I've got one of these tile textures. We're going to just paint it on this backsplash here. Say that this tile is close, but it's not quite correct. You know, if you're in this business, I always encourage people to learn Photoshop. I feel like that's a big part of my workflow, is being able to know Photoshop. So say I've got this tile and it's just not quite right and I want to modify it. I can use my Adjust Materials tool. Let's grab this tile, and what we're going to see here is that we've got a zip file here. I'm going to select this, I'm going to copy it, so Control C, and then I'm going to Alt Tab over to, well, I don't have a folder explorer right now, let's get one up. And in File Explorer, I'm going to paste. If I pressed Enter right now, all it's going to do is take me to an error message. So instead of pressing error, what I need to do is, and I don't know if you can see this, let me see if I can get up some a magnifying glass real quick. We're going to paste this, and what happens here is right here, right where it says .zip and then #zip, what I want to do is I want to select everything past .zip, and I'm going to delete this. But I'm going to remember the name, and the name was Castle Rock AD03. So I'm going to delete this, press Enter. Now all I'm doing is searching for that Castle Rock. Of course I can just push it in the search menu. There's that Castle Rock AD03. And so that if I've got a Photoshop, I can open this up in Photoshop and then I can change the image to what I need it to be. Meaning that you can edit the manufacturer's images. If they're close to what you need, you can start from a known base like this. It's really helpful for doing quick edits on the fly when you can't quite find the material that you need. Now I want to give you another resource for this, and it's a pretty big resource. It's built into my website. If you've never been to the website, I encourage you to go. There's a lot of cool tools on the website. On my website, there's a tools section. In the tools section, there's several different search engines. Let's just start with the texture search. In this texture search, all you need to do is type in your search, like a leather, and what this is going to do is search known texture sites with the term seamless, and that's all you're going to get is known texture sites with seamless parsed to that search. Now if we go back, we also have a tool for model search. In the model search, same thing, we've got a search engine here. We can type in something like leather couch, and we're going to immediately get a bunch of different leather couches that we could possibly download or sometimes purchase from whatever vendor I have listed here. None of these proceeds go to me. These are specific to whatever vendors these are hosted on. Let me click back again. We've got one other big item here, the Chief Architect search. You guessed it. Let's say we want to learn how to do a dormer in Chief Architect. What this is going to do is search some known sites. A couple different shout outs here. We've got Dan Bowman's site on here. We've got Steve Nestor's site on here. We've got a couple other different sites on here. Some good information. Really easy to find the information you need. This sorts by date, so it should bring you up the most up-to-date information if you use this search engine. We also have some code lookup resources here. There's a code lookup search, and there's also some resources for materials and your different drafting needs. Take a look at ADU, and we can see immediately we're getting some responses back from this search engine. So let's go back to Chief. And we're just going to take a look at a few more on the material and model side. I wanted to highlight a particular software that I've been using. It's called Polycam. I'm going to have to bring a link to that somehow later on, but Polycam allows you to scan your own furnishings, your own objects in your own house or places that you've visited, and convert them to something that can be used within Chief Architect. So this couch started as a scan and was modified to be used in Chief Architect. Same with this chair over here. They end up looking really nice. Same with this blanket. Got scanned and brought into Chief Architect. It took me almost no effort at all to get these things inside of Chief Architect and looking nice and sharp. So if you haven't checked that out, it's called Polycam. It allows you to do just a picture scan. You don't need any fancy hardware. It's just based on pictures and telegrammetry, I think. I want to take a look at this metal material. I see a lot of people just joining. I will let you know that I'm only going to be online for another 10 minutes. If you've got a particular question, please let me know in the comments. I'll try to catch it with my eye. This material, if we take a really close look, we've got a lot of maps creating this material. It's got a lot of movement in it. It could obviously be rescaled for whatever needs you might have. In X13, we got a couple of new little tools to be able to utilize and create materials on the fly. One is using the Adjust Materials tool and then switching to a component mode. That way, if I just hit this faucet, I'm going to make a duplication of this material so that I can rescale it if I need to. Nice little trick. One of the other videos I kind of missed, we were touching on roofs at the beginning of the stories, on the beginning of the day. I know we're bouncing around a little bit, but I wanted to just show a quick little trick about doing downspouts. And we're going to provide a link for this, but I'm not sure where that link's going to end up. I'll get back to you on that. I'm going to switch to a plan view, and from the plan view, actually we'll switch back to the BT McMansion. I'm going to drag an elevation out here. This isn't my design, this is in the samples gallery on Chief Architect's website. Turns out we picked a project that doesn't seem to have any gutters. But say that we did have some gutters. Say that we did have a gutter right here. The method for this is just that I like to draw out a line. And I'm going to use my right click. And what that's going to do is do an alternate behavior. Alternate behavior meaning a continuous draw mode. So I'm going to draw out a line and let go. And what it's going to do is going to continue drawing that CAD line so that I can come over here, kind of snap it to my siding, continue down the line, snap it in here somewhere, and then make my bend. Now once I make my selection in my edit menu, I've got the opportunity to do a fillet. I'm going to set my fillet distance. Let's make it something like 4 inches and then fillet all. Now all I need to do is select this item, convert that polyline to a 3D molding polyline, and I'm going to replace the molding that's here. I want to replace it with an item that I have in my library. That's a downspout. I'm going to switch to an overview and we'll just take a quick look at what we just created. Look at that. Clean little downspout, if there was a gutter. Helpful if you need to have all those little details in your rendering or your client overview, or even if you want this in a construction document. That's a very fast way of adding a little feature like that. It's kind of nice little added touch. Now for those of you that are interested, I'm going to shut this down. We're going to save this. And we'll do a new plan. I'm going to go over some of my kitchen and bath tools and how they were created. Let's drop a couple cabinets in here. That's going to create an automatic filler there. We can do a sink, we can do a dishwasher. Might do a full height cabinet. Do some wall cabinets. So some things that are in my toolbars are basically style palette tools. What I want to show you is that if you take a cabinet, open it up, and we're going to set a couple of parameters here. One is I want to turn this into a 3-drawer base. So here I've got my 3-drawer base, and then if I want to quickly be able to paint this, now obviously we could use our object eyedropper tool and paint this object, but something that's a little bit more powerful is creating style palette out of this particular tool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit in my edit menu. Oh, and you can see my kitchen and bath tool just showed up. That's great. In my edit menu, I'm going to add this as a style palette. I'm going to create a new, and then this is important. I need to set my properties. When I set my properties, I want to clear all, and then I'm going to search for something very specific, which is copy face configuration. That's all I need to have checked. And the last bit of this is I'm going to rename it 3-drawer tool. That adds it to my library, and now anytime I go to my library and select that 3-drawer tool, if I highlight a cabinet and I'm in object painter mode and click on this, you can see it just changed that to a 3-drawer base. Look at that. Now to make this even more powerful is, let's go ahead and right click on your toolbars and go to Customize Toolbars. And I want to search for Place Library Object. All I need to do is click on that icon, drag it over to a toolbar, release my mouse button, and I've created a new library object. Let me turn on my magnifying glass so you can see this. And that's the icon that it looks like. Now once I click on this icon, what it's going to take me to is this subsequent menu where I need to hit my library radio button, and I'm going to locate in my user catalog, I'm going to locate that 3-drawer tool. Chief will automatically produce a new icon for me, or you can create your own by clicking on Browse. I always create my own. If I click on Browse and get into my Documents folder for X13, we're going to see that I have some custom items in here. And in those custom items, I've got some custom icons, and here's my 3-drawer icon. So I've selected my 3-drawer icon, press OK, and now, let me just click on that magnifier one more time. You can see I've created a new tool that's a 3-drawer base. When I click and enable that tool, all I need to do is paint a cabinet, and I've immediately got a quick tool to be able to switch over to a 3-drawer base. Simple as that. Doesn't matter what style is in here. Let me just type in RD cab, and we're going to come up with some of my style palettes. I'm going to paint this style palette into the room, and you're going to see immediately we changed the style of this room. In fact, we could do this a number of different ways. And so something to note, that 3-drawer base stayed intact. If I want to use that 3-drawer tool again and say paint one of these other cabinets, you're going to see if I'm in my object painter mode, that's immediately converting this new style to that 3-drawer base. Let's see, Mr. MWV, I would love to know about the round selection tool he uses. Okay. The round selection tool is in fact, let's see if we can't show where we're getting this from. We're going to see if we can't get back to the internet real quick, and we're going to get over into Facebook. And on Facebook, we've got a crazy little group called the Rabbitt Design Feed. In the Rabbitt Design Feed, if you scroll through here, there's a ton of content here. You're going to see this post right here, and this post shows you exactly my hotkeys, the keys that I'm using to maneuver through Chief very quickly. These radial menus come from my 3D connection mouse. Kind of a quick way of browsing through a lot of the content on the Rabbitt Design Feed is that we can go into the ... category, or the more category rather, and get into media. And you can take a quick snippet look of all the different media of types of things that are being posted. There's some free items like this funny little cat tree. But one of the things we go over a lot is hotkey setups. We've got a lot of user input on hotkey setup. So what I'm using right now is a 3D mouse, and it has 2 radial menus. I have 2 modifier keys on my right mouse. On my left mouse, I have radial menus. And what these are bringing up are quick selection tools to be able to draw in a base cabinet. If I hold one of my mouse buttons and hit that same cabinet icon, now I'm in my wall cabinet. Same icon, I can get to full height cabinet. Same thing with windows and any number of types of doors. Very, very quick. The hotkeys do in fact work on a Mac. Yes, WP Design. Thank you. Let's draw out a few more cabinets. We'll show you a few more quick tools that I set up just using style palette tools. We've got a few different overhang tools here. Automatically create overhangs at the click of a button. We've got some molding tools to delete moldings from objects very quickly. We've got an inside corner tool to turn this cabinet into an inside corner. We've got a full height garbage pullout if we want to quickly paint out a full height garbage pullout. Obviously we've got the staples like a dishwasher, add a sink to any item. This is a 3D mouse. WP Design, you're asking, this is a 3D connection mobile mouse is what I'm using. Let's see if we can get that item up. Someone's chiming in on the comments. Let's see if we can take a look at that. In this post way down here, this is the item right here. This is that 3D connection mouse if you're interested. Just go over a few more of the tools we've got here. Obviously, if you followed, you know how to add your own personal items in here, your own libraries of items. Hey, thank you, Brandon. Thanks for the shout out, man. I appreciate it. You can add any item from the catalog here. Something that I like to do, if you right click on any one of my items in my library, we're going to take a look at this. I'm going to shoot up to a magnifying glass so you can see this. I'm going to right click on this item and check out search attributes. Search attributes. In my search attributes, I always have the prefix RD for Rabbitt Design. It makes it very easy for me to look up things such as RD tile so that I can do my own tile backsplash. So if I want to paint backsplash real quick, add this backsplash in, pick one of my own tiles, and I know that it's going to be up to snuff with what I like to have in my scenes. Now we're in a vector view, maybe we would switch to a PBR or standard view to really see that tile. Let's see, showed up late looking for catalog stuff. There's a link to some free content. If we look at, well, there's some free content on the Rabbitt Design feed. If you want to go there, that's on Facebook. If you don't want to be on Facebook, in our Chief Talk forums, in our symbols and content, and let's just kind of pump this up so we can see it. We've got this thread right here. It's an ongoing thread. It's got 50,000 views. It's an ongoing symbols and content thread. I have some content in here, a number of different pages in here. You can take a look. Bunch of free items. Nothing's paid. This is the main listing of all those items. Feel free to browse through. Also, if you're new to the Chief Talk site, Dustin Cruz, shout out to Dustin Cruz at Chief Content. He's just an amazing guy. He's really responsive as well. He's built out a custom tool. He has an explanation of how to use that custom tool, and this is a very quick way for you to create materials on your own. Let me see if I can even preview that tool in short order. We're going to get into my materials catalog, and here I've got substance material generator. And we'll see if we can open this up. So here's the substance material generator that Dustin Cruz has created at Chief Content. Like I said, he's really responsive. He can show you exactly how to use this software. We've got multiple different controls, including a number of different tile colors, which can be random. As you can see here, it's immediately generating a tile. We've got a bunch of different tile layouts. We've got a bunch of different shapes. Here's a chevron, square with pattern, rhombus, penny tile. any number of things. You've got control over the grout size. You've got control over the colors. This is a really great one to have in your toolbox if you need to create custom materials. He's got a generator for tile. He also has a generator for wood. So plank floor, any number of different floor cuts. It's a great tool to get a hand on. Again, that's back in our Chief Talk forums in that symbols and content thread. And this one is actually pinned to the very, very top. So symbols and content, very top, custom material generation with substance player. So guys, I have a scheduled closing of today. I need to go post some more content. I've got a few more things to post. I'm really glad you hopped in. I'm really glad we got some more followers for Chief today. It's all about exposure. You want to cross-link, you want to cross-post, cross-tag. Please reach out to me. You've got questions, you can reach me through the website, you can reach me through Facebook, you can reach me through Chief Talk. Happy you guys are all here. Thanks for chiming in today. If you spent your day with me, I'm so glad you made it this far. Sometimes I like to spend the end of my day kind of roaming through a project that's about to start. This is a really fun way to get to know the house, to get to know the light, understand how it's going to affect your new design, understand how it's going to affect the family that's going to live here, and really appreciate why we even do this. I've loved spending the day with you. It's been an awesome day. We're out here in sunny Oakland, California, up on the hillside. I got a bunch of people to shout out to. Ryan Gardner, love you man. Joe Saunders, we brought him to Instagram today. We brought a bunch of people to Instagram today and the Chief Architect. Really glad you spent the day with me. If you're an interior designer, there's a group, Presentation by Design, on Facebook. That's a Facebook group. Fantastic group of people. They've got a catered training, set of tools, curriculum. It's specific to interior designers. Don't forget, Chief Architect has its own training. I train as well if you want to train with me. Shout out to Carrie Hansen. Shout out to Danny over at Chief. Scott Harris, I miss your face. I'm going to be back at IBS and next year, the Builder Show. I can't remember who else I'm supposed to mention. It's probably a million people. Anyways, thank you for sharing your day with me. I appreciate y'all.